I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, pouring out my guts on a relationship forum, but here I am. It's raw, it's messy, and honestly, I'm still trying to make sense of everything. My wife and I have been together for 8 years. We've built a life, shared dreams, good times, bad times. I thought we knew each other pretty well. Turns out I was wrong. It started last week, around our anniversary. We planned a weekend away at a cozy cabin in the mountains, a little escape from the chaos of work and bills. I was excited, finally some time just for us. When we got there, everything felt perfect. We laughed, cooked dinner together, and I even managed to forget the damn stress for a while. Until late that night when I couldn't shake this nagging feeling, like a tiny voice whispering in my ear that something was wrong. That's when I noticed her phone. It was on the nightstand, buzzing with messages. I've always known she's a bit guarded about her phone, but that night I saw a message, a name I didn't recognize. I didn't want to snoop, but the curiosity gnawed at me. I peeked. The message was from her boss. I read it in the dim glow of the moonlight filtering through the window. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll be waiting after your shift. Bring the coffee." That was all it took to make my stomach drop. I felt a cold sweat break out as I stared at the screen. I couldn't ignore it. I had to dig deeper. I looked through her recent calls and texts, nothing too obvious, but then I found it. A slip of paper tucked inside her purse, a receipt from a hotel near her office. She'd gone there last Thursday, the night she claimed to be working late. And the hotel was, no exaggeration, just 20 minutes from the office. My hands trembled. I felt this rush of heat, anger bubbling up so fast I thought I'd explode. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand answers. But I stayed quiet, watching her sleep beside me. She looked peaceful, unaware that I'd uncovered her secret. What really stung was how she acted afterward, like she didn't care I knew. She'd come home that night, kissed me good morning like nothing had happened, even joked about how stressful her boss is. No apology, no remorse, just that little flicker of guilt I caught when her eyes flicked to her phone. The red flags weren't subtle anymore. I saw her hiding her phone at dinner, the way she'd suddenly cancel plans saying she had extra work at the last minute. Those little things all piling up. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that I was imagining things. But I just knew this wasn't some one-time thing. I started observing her more closely, noticing her body language, the way she'd tense up when her phone buzzed, the way she'd quickly lock her screen and turn away if I looked at her. I saw her lie about where she was, the vague stories that didn't quite add up. And then the clincher. I found lipstick smudges on her collar, a faint scent of her perfume I didn't recognize. When I confronted her, she just laughed it off, said I was paranoid. That same dismissive tone she used when I asked if everything was okay. But I wasn't fooled. I knew she was hiding something, and I was furious. That night I lay awake, feeling my chest tighten, my mind spun with questions. Was she planning to leave? Was she already gone in her mind? I couldn't shake this gnawing suspicion that this wasn't just a mistake. It was her way of escaping, and I was too blind to see it. And that's when I decided I'd had enough. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, not when I knew she was lying, cheating. But I also needed a plan, something to teach her a lesson, make her understand I wasn't the fool she thought I was. I had to get ahead of her, find her weakness, and strike where it hurt. The plan started to take shape in my mind, simple but effective. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, just like I felt every time I saw her sneaking around. This wasn't about revenge just for revenge's sake. It was about reclaiming my dignity, forcing her to face what she'd done. I didn't sleep much that night. Instead, I plotted, my pulse pounding in my ears, my palms sweaty. I knew I could catch her at her own game if I played it right. Next morning, I decided I'd gather everything. Evidence, her words, her secrets. I'd find out everything I needed, and then I'd strike back. Because I refused to be the fool in this story. Not anymore. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd swallowed a rock. My stomach was tied in knots and my head was pounding from all the thoughts swirling around. I knew I couldn't just sit on this anymore. I had to act, to get all the facts lined up before I confronted her. If I was going to do this, I needed to do it smart. No reckless accusations, just cold, hard evidence. First thing I did was check her phone again. I went through all her recent messages and missed calls looking for patterns or anything suspicious. Nothing new jumped out, just her usual flurry of work emails, a few casual texts with her friends, a handful from her boss, but nothing that screamed guilty. Still, I knew better than to trust that. I wanted more. I decided I'd need to see her at work, see if I could catch her in the act or get some confirmation. So I waited until she left for her meeting, which she claimed was with a client. I stayed behind, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum. I kept my eyes peeled for clues. When she finally left, I slipped on my jacket, grabbed my phone, and started making calls. First thing was to get the hotel receipts. I called the hotel from a different number, posing as a potential guest asking about their check-in policies. They confirmed she'd booked a room under her name last Thursday. I asked for the details. She'd checked in around 8 p.m., stayed for the night, and checked out the next morning. I'd gotten my evidence. It was enough to confirm she'd been there, and not just for work. Next, I looked up her boss. I Googled him, checked his social media, searched for any recent activity that might link him to her. Nothing too obvious, but I got the feeling that they'd been in touch more than just through work emails. I could see enough to know she'd been planning this for a while. I could picture her sneaking around, hiding her phone, and lying about her whereabouts. I also decided I'd pay close attention to her behavior when she got back. I knew she'd try to cover her tracks, but I was ready for her. I'd set up a hidden camera in the living room, nothing fancy, just a small device I bought online. I wanted to catch her in the act or see how she acted around me after her little secret night. When she finally walked through the door that afternoon, I could smell her perfume, a faint, sweet scent I didn't recognize. She looked nervous, maybe a little too casual, like she'd rehearsed her smile. She tossed her bag down on the couch and looked at me with that same blank expression she'd been wearing all week. "Hey," she said, voice a little too chipper. "How was your day?" I stared at her for a moment, then asked, "Did you have to go to that client's meeting today, the one you said was supposed to be at lunchtime?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "Yeah, it ran late, nothing special." I crossed my arms. "You're lying. I know you went to the hotel last Thursday night. I found the receipt." Her face flickered just for a second, a flash of guilt. Then she recovered, her smile tightening. "You've been snooping around, haven't you? Jesus, you're paranoid." "Do insult my intelligence," I said, voice steady but cold. "I saw your messages, the ones from your boss, the hotel receipts, the lies, it all adds up, so tell me what's going on." She looked away for a moment, then sighed. "Look, I didn't mean to hurt you. It was a mistake, okay? One stupid night, one weakness. I didn't want to ruin everything. I was going to tell you eventually." That's when I felt my jaw tighten. "You think a half-hearted apology and some bullshit about a mistake will fix this? How long has this been going on? How many nights have you been sneaking around?" She looked down, her hands trembling slightly. "It was just that once, I swear. I was stupid and I regret it, but I don't want to lose everything because of one mistake. Can we forget it?" "Forget it." I wanted to laugh. I felt a cold rage bubbling inside like a volcano ready to explode. I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. I looked her in the eye and said, "No, I don't think I can forget it. Not after everything I found out." Her eyes flicked with something, fear, guilt. She looked like she was about to say something, then just stopped. I knew this was just the beginning of what I had planned. I'd been patient, gathering everything I needed, but now it was time to act, time to turn the tables. I told her, "Pack your bags, you're leaving tonight, and don't come back." I didn't yell, I just said it like I was ordering her, calm and cold. She stared at me, blinking rapidly. "You're serious?" "As serious as I've ever been." "You've been caught, and I don't want to hear your excuses. I want you gone, and I want you out of my life." She looked like she wanted to protest, to say something, but the words died in her throat. I could see the defeat in her eyes, the flicker of panic. I knew she'd been planning an escape, but now she realized I wasn't going to let her slide. Not this time. I started packing her clothes myself. I didn't bother asking her what she wanted to take. She already knew she'd lost. I handed her a bag, told her to get her things, and waited silently for her to leave. As she gathered her stuff, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I hated how this had turned out, but I also knew I'd finally done something right. I'd taken control. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. she was going and I would finally start healing from this betrayal. When she finished packing, I handed her the keys to the apartment. "Here," I said flatly. "You don't need them anymore. You're not coming back." She looked at the keys, then at me, her face pale. "You'll regret this, you'll see." Maybe I would, or maybe I'd finally be free from this nightmare. Either way, I was done being played. I turned away and walked out of the door, knowing I'd have to face the fallout soon enough. But for now, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I'd shut this chapter tightly and I'd move on, because I knew one thing: my peace depended on it. The silence after she left was deafening. I stood there in the doorway, watching her walk out with her bag in hand, like she was trying to hold it together but was crumbling inside. The house felt emptier than ever, the echo of her footsteps fading into the distance. My stomach felt hollow, my pulse pounding in my ears. I'd done it, I'd finally pushed her out. But no matter how much I told myself I was in control, a gnawing doubt lingered. Was this truly the end, or just the beginning of something darker? I took a long breath, trying to steady myself. My hands trembled as I closed the door behind her. The house was eerily quiet now, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. I sank onto the couch, feeling like I'd just run a marathon. My mind was racing. I kept replaying that moment when I handed her the keys. Was I too harsh, too quick? No, I told myself. She deserved every bit of it. But then a flicker of curiosity crept in. I grabbed my phone and started scrolling through her social media, looking for anything I might have missed. I thought I knew her, thought I knew everything about her. Turns out I knew nothing. There were messages I'd overlooked, subtle hints of guilt and regret woven into her posts, comments from her friends about how she seemed distant lately, how something bothering her. It was all there, hiding in plain sight. Plus, I found out that she'd been dating her boss for longer than I suspected. There were photos of them together at work functions, laughing, holding hands. They'd even taken a weekend trip a few months ago. I stared at those pictures, feeling a surge of anger and betrayal. All those moments, those memories that should have been ours. Instead, she'd been building a double life, slipping away from me piece by piece. I realized I needed more than just leaving her. I needed to understand her motivation, why she did it, what she thought she could get away with. So I set out to dig deeper. I contacted an old friend of mine, someone who's good with computers and could help me trace her digital footprints. I wanted to see her emails, her browsing history, anything that could tell me what was really going on inside her head. While waiting for his reply, I sat back, feeling the weight of everything crashing down. My chest was tight, my vision blurred with a mixture of rage, sadness, confusion. I kept asking myself, was I enough? Or was I just too blind to see what was happening? My stomach churned as I remembered the nights she'd come home late, the way she'd dismiss my questions, the way her scent lingered on her clothes even after she'd gone out. Just then my phone buzzed. It was him, my friend. He'd gone through her emails and browsing history. The results were worse than I imagined. She'd been plotting her escape, secretly meeting him after hours, planning to leave me behind. There were emails she'd deleted, but he managed to recover some of them. She'd been planning this for months. Reading those messages, I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. She'd planned to leave me, to run away with her boss, and I'd been so blind I never saw the signs. I clenched my fists. All those nights I'd begged her to talk, to open up, and she'd been sneaking around behind my back. I felt a mixture of disgust and sadness. Disgust that she'd betrayed me so completely, and sadness that I'd lost the woman I thought I knew. That's when I decided I needed to take control of the situation. I wanted to hit back, but not with threats or yelling. I needed a plan, something calculated, something that would make her regret ever crossing me. I wanted her to feel exposed, just like I felt every time I saw her texting her boss, hiding her phone. I started drafting my revenge in my mind. It had to be subtle but effective. It had to hurt her in a way that made her understand that she'd lost her safety net, me. I wasn't interested in petty revenge, or getting even just to make myself feel better. No, this was about making her see what she had thrown away. I'd find a way to make her regret her choices without crossing any lines, something that would leave her vulnerable, maybe even a little afraid. I wanted her to feel the consequences of her betrayal without me having to be the one to yell or threaten. I wanted her to see what she'd done and realize she'd gone too far. For now, I kept quiet about everything I'd uncovered. My plan was to wait, to let her stew in her own guilt if she even had any. I knew she'd be back eventually to try to explain or maybe beg for forgiveness. But I wouldn't give her that satisfaction yet. Not until I was ready. In the meantime, I took a long walk outside, feeling the cool breeze against my skin. The street was alive with noise, but in my mind it was silent, except for the pounding of my own thoughts. I realized I'd been in denial for so long. I'd ignored the small red flags, told myself stories to keep the pain at bay. But now I saw everything clearly. She'd been planning her exit, and I was going to make sure she paid for it, just not in the way most would expect. There's something about betrayal that shakes you right to your core. It strips away all the illusions you've built about the person you loved. But it also awakens a certain clarity. I'd been a fool, yes, but I was done being naive. I was finally ready to take my revenge, on my own terms. The pieces were falling into place, and I knew I'd catch her somewhere in her web of lies. The game was on. The waiting felt like an eternity. Every hour that dragged by, I felt the weight of what I'd uncovered pressing down harder on my chest. I kept replaying everything in my head, the stolen nights, the fake smiles, her dismissive attitude when I questioned her. I knew I had to be patient, but that patience was wearing thin. I was burning to see her fall, to watch her realize she wasn't as clever as she thought. I spent the next few days tightening my plan. I kept the house under surveillance, just enough to catch her in any slip-up. I installed a few more discreet cameras, and I made sure my phone was always charged, ready to record or snap a photo if needed. I also reached out to a few friends I trusted, asking their opinion. Some said to confront her outright, others warned me to be cautious. But I knew I had to do more than just yell or accuse. I had to make her see that I was in control now. One evening, she came home late again. The scent of her perfume was stronger, more intoxicating than usual, and I could smell the faint trace of her lipstick on her collar. I felt my jaw tighten. I didn't say anything right away. Instead, I watched as she moved through the house, her eyes flicking nervously like she was trying to anticipate my next move. That night, I decided I'd go for a direct approach. I waited until she was in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine. I walked in slowly, letting her see me. She froze for a moment, then gave me a forced smile. "Hey," she said softly, "you're home early." I looked at her, my voice low and steady. "You lied to me again." Her face flickered with panic. "It's not what you think. I don't lie. I know about the hotel. I know about your little meetings. I know about the texts." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the photos I'd taken earlier that day, screenshots of her messages, the hotel receipt, her social media posts. Her eyes widened and she took a step back. "You're crazy. You've gone too far. You've been lying, cheating on me. And now I want to know, how long has this been going on? Are you planning to leave, or is this just a one-time thing?" She swallowed hard, her lips trembling. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. I was stupid. I wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how." I felt my fists clench. "Tell me what? That you've been sneaking around, that you've been planning to leave me for that bastard." She looked down, tears pooling in her eyes. I was scared. I didn't want to lose everything. I thought I could fix it, but I see now I was wrong. "I'm sorry." "Sorry? Sorry doesn't erase what you did. Sorry doesn't undo the fact that you betrayed our vows, that you threw away everything we built." But I kept my voice even, controlled. "Sorry doesn't cut it anymore," I said quietly. "You've broken trust, shattered everything I believed in. I want you gone tonight, and I want nothing more to do with this mess." Her face twisted with pain. "Please don't do this. I love you." That was the last straw. I shook my head slowly, feeling every muscle in my body tense. "Love? You call this love? Sneaking off to your boss's hotel, hiding your phone, lying about everything. That's not love. That's betrayal." She looked like she was about to say something, but I cut her off. "You're not going to guilt me into staying. I've made up my mind. Pack your things. You're leaving tonight. Don't come back." Her eyes welled up with tears, but I stood firm. I knew she'd try to manipulate me, maybe beg, maybe promise she'd change, but I'd heard enough. I knew her game now. She had no intention of staying faithful, and I wasn't about to be the fool again. She grabbed a bag and started packing, her movements stiff and mechanical. I watched her, feeling that strange mix of anger and relief. The house suddenly felt emptier, colder, but I also felt a strange sense of control, finally taking the reins after months of being deceived. As she finished, I handed her the keys to the apartment. "Here," I said, voice tight. "You don't need these anymore. You're not coming back." She looked at me, her face streaked with tears. "You'll regret this, you'll see." Maybe I would, or maybe I'd finally found the strength to move on. Either way, I knew I was done being a pawn. I'd taken back my dignity, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. I turned around and walked out, shutting the door on her and on that chapter of my life. I could still hear her crying softly behind me, but I didn't look back. I knew this was just the start. My revenge was in motion now. I was finally free, and I wasn't going to let her string me along anymore. That's what mattered. The house was silent again, but I felt a strange peace settle over me. I was done being the victim. It was time to rebuild. The house felt colder than ever after she left. The silence was oppressive, almost like the walls were mourning with me. I stood in the doorway, staring at the empty space where she'd just been. My hands were numb, my stomach still churning with that weird mix of satisfaction and emptiness. Part of me wanted to scream, to tear everything apart, but I knew better. I had to be strategic. I took a deep breath and reached for my phone. I needed to start executing my plan, the one I'd been cooking up in secret. First, I texted her. A simple message. "Keys are on the table, don't come back." No anger, no pleading, just cold, clear, decisive. I wanted to cut all ties and make her realize there was no turning back. Next, I sat down at my desk and opened a new folder, one I'd prepared some time ago, just in case. It contained everything I'd gathered: screenshots of her messages, hotel receipts, her social media activity. I knew I'd need solid proof if she ever tried to deny anything. I copied everything into a secure drive, making sure it was locked behind a password. She might have thought she was clever, but I'd been planning my retaliation carefully. While I was at it, I drafted a text to her boss, one that was blunt but professional. I told him I knew about their affair, that it was inappropriate, and that I would be reporting him to HR. I didn't want to go overboard, but I wanted him to know I was watching. I wanted him to feel the pressure, the guilt of his own betrayal. It was the beginning of my revenge, making him realize his actions had consequences. I also called a lawyer. I needed legal advice on how to handle the situation, especially regarding the house and any joint assets. The lawyer was sympathetic but firm. "You have grounds for divorce due to infidelity," she said, "but you should also consider protecting yourself financially. Do you have copies of your shared bank accounts, any joint property?" I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my life. I had been blindsided, but now I was taking control. I'd seen her lie, cheat, and plan her escape. I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. Over the next days, I kept my distance. I didn't reach out to her, didn't text. I let her stew in her guilt, knowing she was probably panicking by now. I had my own game to play. I kept working on gathering evidence, making sure I had everything ready. I also started reaching out to a few people I trusted, friends who knew the situation, people who could support me if needed. Meanwhile, I kept a close eye on her social media. I monitored her activity, looking for any signs she was trying to contact someone, her boss, her friends, anyone who might help her escape more easily. I wasn't just passive anymore. I was watching, waiting, planning my next move. One evening, I received a message from her, abrupt, unexpected. She apologized, said she was sorry for everything, begged me to forgive her. She said she'd realized she'd made a terrible mistake, that she loved me and wanted to fix things. I read it and felt a surge of anger. Sorry, after everything. I half expected her to try and manipulate me, but I refused to fall for it. I responded with a simple, "It's too late for apologies. You should have thought about that before you cheated." I knew she was trying to play the guilt card, but I wasn't falling for it. That night I made a decision. I was going to give her an ultimatum, one last chance to do the right thing. If she wanted to save what little remained of our marriage, she needed to come clean and cut ties with her boss completely. No more secret meetings, no more lies. I'd give her 24 hours. If she didn't, I was filing for divorce, and I was going to make sure she paid the price for her betrayal. I laid out my terms clearly in a message. Tell me the truth, cut off all contact, or I walk away for good. I knew I had her cornered now. She couldn't deny everything. I had the proof, and I had the upper hand. I was finally in control of this chaos. The next morning, I got her reply. She admitted everything. She said she'd ended things with her boss and promised she'd never see him again. She even begged me not to ruin her career, claiming she was sorry and that she loved me deeply. But I could hear the desperation in her voice, and I didn't buy it. Not anymore. I had my answer. I knew the truth. I knew she was trying to save herself, to manipulate me into forgiveness, but I wasn't interested in her apologies anymore. I told her I'd think about it, but I already knew what I was going to do. This wasn't about forgiveness. It was about justice, and I was ready to take the final step. I went to my lawyer again, prepared the paperwork. I knew that once I signed the divorce papers, it would be over. No more lies, no more betrayal. Just a clean break, a fresh start. I handed her the keys, told her to pack her things, and now I was standing in the doorway with a sense of finality. As I watched her walk out with her bags, I realized something. I'd been a fool for so long, but no more. I'd taken back my life, reclaimed my dignity, and I was finally ready to let go of her. Time to close this chapter for good and move forward. The moment I handed her the divorce papers, I knew I'd won. Not just because I'd caught her in her lies, but because I'd finally chosen myself over her betrayal. That was the real victory. The house was eerily quiet as I sat at the dining table, the divorce papers spread out in front of me. I stared at the signature line, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. It was done. After everything, the betrayal, the lies, the sleepless nights, I finally had the closure I needed. The weight that had been pressing down on my chest for weeks had lifted, replaced by a strange clarity. I picked up the pen and signed my name, the stroke feeling heavier than I expected. It wasn't just a signature, it was a final act of reclaiming my life. I looked at her name on the document, then at my own. The part of me that loved her still flickered, but I pushed it aside. That version of me was gone. This was the new chapter. Once I handed her the papers, I knew I wouldn't look back. I called my lawyer, confirmed everything was filed, and then I took a deep breath. I gathered her belongings from the bedroom, some clothes, a few personal items she'd left behind, and placed them in a box. I didn't want to harbor anger or hostility. I just wanted her out of my sight and my mind. As I sealed the box, I felt a strange sense of finality. I'd been through hell, but I was finally free. I thought about everything I'd lost, trust, comfort, the future I'd envisioned, and I realized that what I gained was far more valuable, my dignity and my peace. I made my way to the front door, keys in hand, and looked at the house that had once been our home. It was just bricks and mortar now, a shell of what we'd built. I knew I had to make a clean break. I slipped the keys into an envelope, scribbled for her, and left it on the table. A small gesture, but it felt right. No more holding on to the past, no more waiting for her to come back and fix what she broke. Walking outside, I felt the cool breeze against my face. The sun was shining bright and unyielding, and I took that as a sign. Life was moving forward whether I was ready or not. I started the car, feeling a strange sense of liberation. I was finally taking control of my story. Over the next few weeks, I focused on healing. I started going to therapy, talking through everything I'd been through. I reconnected with friends who supported me more than I could have imagined. I even took up some hobbies I'd abandoned, reading, running, small trips just for myself. It was slow, but I was rebuilding piece by piece. Looking back, I realized I had been a fool for a long time. I ignored the red flags, made excuses, told myself it was all in my head. But the truth was, I was clinging to something that was already gone, and now that I'd finally let go, I saw clearly. She betrayed me, yes, but I was stronger than her lies. I'd taken back my power. The lesson here: trust your gut. Don't ignore the small signs of betrayal or disrespect, because in the end, the only person responsible for your happiness and safety is you. I could have stayed angry or bitter, but I chose to focus on my healing. That's what saved me. So I moved on. Her chapter is closed, and I'm finally starting fresh, unburdened by the weight of betrayal. Life's unpredictable, but I know now more than ever that resilience is built through facing adversity, not avoiding it. I'm not perfect, but I'm free. And that's all I needed to say.